C2E2, are we doing well today? Are there any Hannibal fans in this crowd? Sounding pretty good, and I am excited because we have a killer panel for you today. Yes, 11 years after this show originally debuted on television, we have the two co-stars of Hannibal with us. And I can't wait to get started. So, Fannibals, are you ready to get started? All right, well then put your hands together for Mads Mikkelsen and Hugh Dancy.
Hi, guys.
This is incredible. You got a standing ovation.
Yep.
That's amazing. I mean, talking about the fans, we're 10, 11 years into when Hannibal first debuted. Do you still expect this? The cheering, the shouting?
Every morning.
Think about it a lot.
No, it's a surreal thing. I mean, we see it when we go to Comic Cons or occasionally at a premiere, see all the little flower crowns. We still know what it's all about. Somebody has to tell us how it started, but we embrace it and we love it.
Looking back at when you first signed on to the project a decade ago, what did you expect when you signed on? Did you expect, I mean, it's a very unique show.
Not this. No, that's the truth. I don't know what I expected. I signed on basically on the basis of sitting down with Brian Fuller and hearing him talk through the show and what he envisaged for the show. And I mean, Mads, once Brian starts telling you what his plans are, you're right. You know, he keeps going, and it's very compelling, and that was it for me. But this, no.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What happened in those first meetings when he was telling you what he had envisioned for the show?
He described for me like 3 seasons of the show, which bore no relation to the show we actually made eventually. It would have been an amazing show. But I don't know, I got a sense of who he was and his vision, right?
Yeah, and I had the same kind of meeting. I was supposed to be there for 15 minutes, and he went on for 3 hours. And I think he was in season 8 or something. And I was completely lost, but his energy was insane. I've met a few like very extreme radical people in this business, but nothing like that. It was just his dream and his vision was very hard to understand, but it was very compelling.
I think
Yeah, thanks.
I think one of the things that really stands out to fans about the show is that it's so unique in its style and its tone and the dialogue. How did you develop your characters and your performances with that specific style in mind?
Well, we had obviously the books to go to start with. For me, anyway, Red Dragon. I mean, it was all there. And then beyond that, yeah, coming to terms with Brian's really specific type of writing and just, frankly, just learning it. Because it's not, it's hyper real, right? It's not naturalistic, and I say that in the best possible way. So finding the rhythms of that and just sitting opposite Mads and getting into the rhythms of that writing.
Yeah, but and then there was also stuff that we were not aware of, and after the first couple of episodes, I think we had a better idea of where he was going with the visuals, which is a very big part of the show. Obviously, the way it's graphic and the way it's not graphic, that fine balance was something that we had no idea where it was going to land. But We saw that after a few episodes, and I think that was really nice to lean into, because then we were also allowed to go a little further, because, as you say, it's lifted.
How did you adjust your performance as you started to get more familiar with the show and the vision?
I don't know. I mean, it's obviously based on Will Graham's development from one thing to another, and me being his teacher somehow. And you know, normally when you have a character, you want it to be very true to the character. You will often hear yourself saying, "But my character wouldn't do that," or "My character wouldn't do that." But that was not the case with Hannibal, because he could do anything. As long as it was benefiting him in the end, he could do whatever. So I rarely had those complaints. I just went like, "Okay, Brian, a horse, a dog, I'm naked. Okay, it makes sense later." So that's basically, I was just waiting for whatever Brian came up with, and he did surprise us once in a while.
He told me relatively early on, "Oh, I'm thinking, I'm thinking at the end of this season, it would be really great if you vomited up an ear. Do you have any thoughts about whose ear it should be?" Like, no, bro, no. I'll leave that with you. But being given that as a place to get to, because of, like Maz says, I was the opposite, going through a really extreme change. That gave, because obviously, particularly at the beginning of the show, there was the murder of the week. There's the guy with the toadstools growing out of his head, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But underneath all of that, there was this thing between Will and Hannibal, and and just generally having encephalitis, which I kind of got to understand more as we went on.
I really love that ear story. Are there any other stories that come to mind from, like, favorite stories of when you worked on the set?
There are tons of them. The problem with favorite stories is that you can't remember them. But when you're in the midst of it, it's funny and crazy. But when you get the question, you can't remember. The second we wrap up, we remember them. All right. So, you have one?
Yeah, I don't know about funny stories. I do remember the first day working with Scott Thompson, and who I was familiar with, and I think Scott had this really charming quality of seeming to be bewildered that he was in the show. and I was like, "Oh, that's who this character's going to be. He's going to be, you know, he's going to be Scott."
Yeah, I think it's on one of the blooper reels as well with Scott, where he is one of the funny characters, obviously, for good reason. And then one of our directors just said, "Okay, let's do the straight version, you know, the non-funny version." And Scott said, that was the one I just did. It's like, all right. So that was he was fantastic to work with as well. Everybody was. We met so many fantastic actors throughout the show, right? That came and visited us. So it was a humbling experience.
There's a lot of love in this
That's
room.
a great question.
That's nice. We talked earlier about kind of the visuals of the show. One of the main central things we keep returning to is the food, right? We've got some incredible food styling. Are there any dishes that you remember seeing the most?
I didn't get to eat as much as Mads.
As many.
Got there eventually. Probably the most fun was the ortolan, right? The tiny bird, which she created so lovingly. The tiny bones inside were dried pasta, I think. So it had the crunch that it apparently has.
Made out of marzipan.
Yes, and made out of marzipan.
Yeah.
Marzipan and dried pasta.
I had a scene with Lawrence. Lawrence is a foodie. And they were serving us foie gras. Can't pronounce it. Can you say it? Foie gras. It's French. Suck it up. But we just love it so much that Lawrence deliberately fucked up his lines a few times. We had to reshoot it. So the food was really as good as it looked. Yeah.
Sounds delicious. Maz, you did a lot of cooking. Do you feel like you improved as a chef?
No. I'm good at chopping things. I'm really good at chopping things and juggling stuff and catching it. But the result, the end result, is not worth mentioning. So that's why we have a real chef on the set. Am I disappointing everyone now? And I'm not a real cannibal. I'm so good. That was worse for you.
Just a little bit less.
There's a lot of blood in this show, and yeah, and you both get covered in a lot of blood. What were those days like? There was a lot of excitement for that.
It's the strangest applause line I've ever heard. I mean, it's really hard to get that blood off. It's much harder than real blood. I'm sorry again, it wasn't real blood.
Which you would know.
Sure, yeah.
It's sticky.
There's multiple types of blood, right? There's the blood that the makeup department has, and there's the blood that the costume department has, and there's the blood that the special effects department have, and then they all argue about who has the better blood. And then, to my memory, you end up just with all of it. Because, less is not more in this case.
But they have one thing in common. It's sticky, and a lot of it has a certain amount of sugar or honey in it. So if you're one of those victims that is, in the background on a hot summer day outdoor, you will be covered by bees. So there's a little downside to that, yeah. But it is just a super sticky thing, and for a smoker like me, it's super annoying. Try it. But, yep, blood.
That's a dangerous game. We talked about blood. There's also a lot of, weird gore, climbing out of horses, all of these different things going on. Were you ever, we all got grossed out when we saw it in a good way, but were you ever grossed out on set? Spitting out an ear?
No. Honestly, I loved it. I was birthed from a stag. That was a good day at work,
That's true. I think. We tend to have fun with it, between takes. Obviously, we had, what was his name, the doctor whose jaw I cut open, and. It was not Chilton.
Oh, Sutcliffe. Oh, that one.
Thank you. So, but
Butchered
that was such a
doctors.
gross. The prosthetic work they've done on that dummy, it was so gross. So obviously we had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
In between takes. But no, we know what it is. It's fake blood. Sorry again, it's not real people. They're not dead. So it's not freaking us out. It's pretty fun to be around.
Maz, you mentioned...
It's a TV show. It's not real. Bye. Thanks for having us.
Maz, you mentioned in your press tour for Another Round, an incredible movie. You mentioned that you trained as a dancer, and this is a very physical role of Hannibal. Did that training come into your performance as Hannibal?
I don't know. I've had the question before. I don't know if I would have done anything differently as an actor if I hadn't been a dancer. Probably not, but I can't tell because that was the way it happened, right? Obviously, he's elegant in a certain way. I have to be aware of it, and he has to have a certain tempo that he can also change. So you have to have a bodily awareness in all characters, but specifically this man. He was very specific. Nothing was wasted. He was not having a nervous scratch or anything like that, which is quite human. We made him inhuman in that way. So he was complete in control of all his movements. Yeah.
Right, and we spent a lot of time just sitting in two chairs opposite each other. You have to be just to be still, right? It's to be still, but doing something at the same time. I don't know if that relates to dancing exactly, but you have self-awareness of that.
Yep.
Well, on that matter, Hugh, your character is very human. Your foils, right? When you were sitting on the opposite of each other and playing off of each other, were you in constant dialogue with this is what you're going to do? Okay, well then I'm going to try to do this to kind of counteract.
Not overtly. I mean, it was like, well, what are you going to do on the third line? Okay, well, I'll cross my leg. No. But I think there's a bit of, I mean, I'm sure we were doing that without speaking about it, right? Bouncing off each other or mirroring each other or whatever it might be. Yeah.
I think there was a constant cat and mouse game between them, and we were not always sure who was the cat and who was the mouse. And so I think we just found a rhythm in that. Obviously, as you say, he is more down the department of being human than I am, and he's also going through a lot of things, which Hannibal is not. So that would obviously rub off on what he does, but he would also sometimes be smartly in control of that in order to counter what I'm doing, right? So it was back and forth.
I remember thinking at the time that one of the reasons it was so fun to work with Mads, because we both, I think, like to talk about what we're going to do to the same kind of degree, and then at the same point, we wanted to not talk about it anymore and just do it, and a lot of it you're figuring out as you're doing it.
It made sense to 5 people, that one.
Or maybe it was just pity.
We mentioned the cat and mouse game. All of that kind of leads up to this grand finale where Hugh, your character lets go and kind of you both.
Don't spoil it, I haven't seen it yet.
No one in here has seen this show. No one. But what was it like to let go with your character? And Mads, what was it like for you to kind of have, it's a big moment for both of you.
Are we talking about the finale?
Mm-hmm. Finale.
End. It was great. I mean, my memory of that is, once again, being covered in blood. It's good to know we always go back to that for a solid...
Fake blood.
Yeah, was it fake blood?
Fake blood. Sorry.
Filming all night outside Toronto, somewhere in the countryside, that kind of fight sequence. At some point, discovering a bottle of wine in the house that we were filming in and thinking that would be a good idea. And it was.
Fake wine.
Fake wine, fake news. But also behind that, like talking to Brian, like, you know, how are we going to, look, we didn't know that was necessarily going to be a finale, but we arrived between the two of us at a place that Will and Hannibal had not been at before, right? Acceptance, I guess. And trying to figure out how to do that in a simple way and not belabor it and just, just happens.
It's a giant journey, obviously, for both of them. In reality, that is a giant journey he's gone through. But in Hannibal's world as well, even though the step is much smaller, for him, it's a gigantic leap, right?
Right, because he's potentially envisioning
the future.
Carrying on yeah.
But it's interesting because Hannibal had never ever thought about the future. He's a man who lives in the present. And for once, he saw a future, yeah. But
it's a pretty horrible future.
Do you want to know what? Yeah. Do you know? You're all just taking for granted that he's part of that future? Oh yes, of course. Come on. What we know what happens, but we can't tell you because we're still crossing our fingers a couple more years, right? So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Hugh, you mentioned earlier turning to the books. When you guys turned to the books, how did that interact with how you read the scripts and prepared your characters?
Well, ultimately, eventually, we got right into Red Dragon. But for me, it was more about, before we started filming, figuring out the exact nature of Will's mind and how it worked, and specifically the trouble that he had connecting with people who aren't ultra-violent. And what that was. You know, when we talked about it at the beginning, I remember there was some suggestion that maybe Will is on the spectrum, right? Maybe he's a... But my understanding from, I mean, we're all on the spectrum, right? It's a spectrum. But But my understanding, Will, eventually from Red Dragon was that he's, in a sense, at the opposite end of the spectrum, that he's too porous, right? He's shut down because he receives too much information from people and it's painful, as opposed to not being able to read them. And that all came from Thomas Harris.
What do you miss the most about your time on Hannibal?
Miss? It's hard to say. I mean, we spent, you rarely as an actor get to spend 3 years with one character. We visit a film and we leave the film in 2 months, right? So this was just a journey that grew on all of us. We see each other once in a while, but I do miss the friendships and I miss the people around the whole thing. Luckily, we do still see each other, but we're far between because of he's chosen to live over here for some reason. And so yeah, that's one of the things. Yeah, maybe the most important thing. Yeah.
And before we go to our final question, we will be going to fan questions on the QR code thing soon on the Fan Hub, on the C2E2 Fan Hub. So the last question that I have for the two of you is, since we have the both of you and since this is a reunion, what was your favorite part about working with each other?
We haven't answered yet. There wasn't one. No, it was, for me, it was those scenes, just because it's so rare. People don't write scenes that are deliberately meant to be played sat opposite each other with that kind of rich language. You know, in any other show or movie, you think, well, I'm going to have to get up out of this chair. I've got to find a way to get out of this chair and move around because this is just going to be boring. But it wasn't that. It was this intense game of ping pong or whatever between the two of them. And you know, I can't think that I've ever got to do that in any other job. It was rare.
Yeah, I all of that, ditto. But one of the things I really enjoyed, I also think was cleverly written, was after I can't remember. Is that the end of the first season? I can't remember. Anyways, I have watched it. I have seen it. But you know that we normally were used to envision that we see Hannibal in jail with the famous mask and stuff. But I remember that scene where I walked down the alley of cells, and I come up to Will Graham, and I'm standing out there as a free man, and I say, "Hello, Will." And I think it was beautiful. And then we had like tons of scene with the bars between us, which was super tricky to shoot. But it was just so fantastic to be out there, and he was in there. Also because I knew I'm going to get him out eventually. Yeah.
I love both of those answers. They're very sweet. So turning to fan questions now, I saw a great one flip by. Maz, you just reunited with Brian Fuller on a new project. What was that like?
Yeah. Dust Bunny. Yeah. It was as crazy and mental as it was doing this. Now I had him as a director, which we've never tried before. And well, I loved it. I love him. I think he's a brilliant man. But it was crazy, but in a cool way. So I can't wait to see the film. And we have a little girl in the film who's absolutely fantastic. So soon it's coming out.
And everyone in here is going to watch it. I saw a good one that asked, how was it difficult to work with a lot of dogs?
Yes. I mean, they were delightful, but they just don't do what they're told so much of the time. But it was really clear when we were sure, oh, that's who this guy is, right? That's the heart of who this guy is. So I did not resent the dogs, just to be clear.
Were they real?
I'm going to start a fake dog conspiracy. What question have you always wanted to be asked at a panel? It's a hard one.
By anyone?
Yeah, by anyone.
Well, obviously, which I never understood why people never ask. Why are people not asking, how much money are you making? I mean, I wouldn't like people to ask me that, but I've always wondered if nobody asked that question, thank God. But I don't know. Do you know the answer to that one?
To that question?
No.
No, I don't have a dream question that I'm waiting for, hoping against hope. No.
Well, I have a silly one to follow up, which is if Hannibal or Will took a trip to Chicago, would they get an Italian beef sandwich, deep dish pizza, or a Chicago-style hot dog? We're taking this very seriously here.
Yeah.
I got to be honest here. All of those dishes seems rude. What do you think?
And in that sense, should be eaten.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the above.
I don't know. Nah, yeah, it's just, I mean, Hannibal does not eat food like that. It's just not happening.
I guess the question is, which might he serve to an unsuspecting dinner party crowd, right? And this is a deep dish pizza, Yeah.
I guess you can get away with the hot dog thingy in a different manner. Maybe that would be the choice, yeah.
Were there any alternative versions of a scene or an episode from any season that you filmed that you wish made it into the show?
Alternative scenes or episodes? No, in the first season, there was an episode, and I'm going to be hazy on the details, but this was kind of classic Brian. We filmed the episode, he looked at it, and then he decided, oh wait, this episode should come like 5 episodes later. Do you remember that? And then we reshot quite a lot in order to reshape the story. And he was right. So I don't wish that you all see that episode because it wasn't as good.
Did working on the show, because it's fairly dark material, ever impact your daily life?
I mean, do you mean in a traumatic sense?
I guess so, yeah.
No. I love working, and I love going home after work. Both are good.
Yeah, I completely agree. The whole idea is to step into the character and leave the character as fast as you can. That doesn't mean that you can't be affected by a long day of a certain emotion, but it's rarely got something to do with the character itself. If you're going down that path, you should probably find a different job. And also, I would say, in Hannibal's case, honestly, he's doing everything he loves, constantly. So he's a very happy man, even though we're dealing with very dark materials, but he sees the world upside down. So he would come home with a little skip,
Did you have a toughest episode to film, whether that was just the physicality of it or just very long day?
The final episode of season 2 was pretty challenging. I mean, for obvious reasons, not to keep bringing it back to fake blood, but that was a part of it. We shot that final sequence all night, I remember, and it was the very last scene that we shot in that season. So it was, I don't know, it was like 5 in the morning or something, and poor Casey just kept having a throat cut, and et cetera, et cetera. But it was, I think we knew where that pitch of that scene had to be, right? And it was more than just the acts that were taking place in it, which were pretty extreme already. So, yeah, that was difficult and brilliant.
I agree. It was the toughest one, but also the most beautiful one, I think. And it was for everyone. Also because basically Hannibal is cleaning up, right? just getting rid of everyone. That is brutal, but it's also a new start, right? So there was some beauty in there as well, if you ask me.
Did you have a favorite murder or tableau from the show?
I mean, I like I like Cello Man.
That one is rough.
I liked killing Tobias. I thought that was and also and poor Franklin. I also liked.
Was there a prop you really wanted to take home, or was there a prop you did take home?
You have to choose now.
I did not take a prop home. Mass?
No,
No?
no. I ate it.
Oh, that's true. I did.
No, I didn't bring the dog home. No.
What was the process of embodying your characters and getting into that headspace? You said you have your work and then home, but how do you get into the work?
On a daily basis?
On a daily basis.
Showing up and working with brilliant people, honestly, is the answer. And arriving and just being happy to be there. It's not in that. I mean, it's complicated, but it's not rocket science.
No.
It's just it's a mutual enterprise.
And once you've been there with the character for a while, and you leave and you come back, the little helping hands is obviously. I show up often with Adidas, and then I go in and I come out of the trailer dressed like Hannibal. It's a big difference, and it wakes you up, and you kind of start going, yeah, time to eat someone, you know.
Which is
Although I have wondered about what would it be like to return to these characters like after 10 years. That is something that's far from something I've ever done, right? If that would happen some point in the no, great. But it would be it might just be a different will, you know. I don't know, I've forgotten.
It can be. Yeah, no, but I mean, to be honest, I mean, if it's going to happen, there will be a gap in time, anyways, and
Yeah,
certain
you're right.
things would have happened, right?
How early on in the show did you realize that it was going to be special?
That's a good question. I remember after we wrapped the first season, the night that we wrapped, being on the camera truck with a bunch of the crew, drinking a beer, and somebody saying to me, like, I really hope we get to come back and do this again. This is the gaffer. I said, I really hope we get to come back and do this again. I really think this is, he said, I think this is special. And he's not the kind of guy who was, you know, going to say that if he didn't mean it. And I thought, oh yeah. Well, I had been feeling that, like, to myself, but when you hear it from somebody else, it validates it.
It's always very difficult to predict anything when you're in the midst of it. You can have a good feel, but it's not necessarily that it turns out like that. But I think after Brian showed us the first couple of episodes, I had a really good feeling that this was special, and it looked special. His words were very different than anything else I've seen on TV. So for me, that was after he showed us the first couple of.
Yeah, and I remember after specifically watching the second episode, which was, when we filmed it, it was much more centered around that specific crime. It was Mushroom Man again. And I mean, I've got nothing against that, but when we watched it, Brian, he did this all the way through the filming of all 3 seasons. He would always have this second unit filming all the little grace notes that go in to make the show so beautiful that we were not present for, right? I didn't think we realized what the visual of the show was going to be. And he had made these very interesting little tweaks, little cuts. He dubbed some lines, I forget exactly what. So that the central theme of that episode was still really about Will and Hannibal and Abigail. He kind of created this through story. And that's when I realized that, oh, right, this thing that I kind of hoped we were doing is what we're doing. So I take back my first answer. Forget that.
Did you have a favorite guest on the show?
That's a little loaded.
If we mention one, everybody else is going to hate us who was on that show, right? I never personally met Lance Henriksen,
Oh yeah,
but he is one of my favorite actors. So I was so pleased to see him in one of the episodes.
yeah,
But I never got to meet him.
yeah, yeah. I know. I'll go for that too. He was amazing.
Do you have a favorite line or catchphrase from your characters on the show?
It's hard to. I mean, I don't think this is particularly in line with Will's regular kind of phrases, but is your social worker in that horse? It's a good line. It's the kind of line that maybe shouldn't have been in there, but in the sense. But I think Brian wrote it. He's like, oh, I can't wait to see him say this, So
It is a great line.
it is a great line.
And I think even Hannibal got surprised when you said it. It was like, my friend
was that
got
a
a sense
joke?
of humor. That's good.
Yeah, that's right.
No, yeah, that's a great line. I think maybe a catchphrase, which would be my own as well, when Hannibal says, "Nothing here is vegetarian." I just like it. I think it's a great line.
If you weren't playing your own characters, which other characters would you want to play?
Oh.
Chilton.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
It's just amazing what he goes through and survives. He's like the Godzilla you can't kill, it just keeps coming back. Yeah.
I saw a fan question asking if you've enjoyed your time at Chicago so far.
Well, I got in last night and got drunk with Maz. I don't know if I can specifically thank Chicago for that experience, but maybe I wasn't alone in that. I don't know.
So, this is how drunk he was because I came in this morning. I wasn't there.
Who was that guy?
Haven't seen much of Chicago, but what I see here, I really like.
That's shameless.
Shameless.
Love your deep dish. What is it? No.
What were your favorite outfits that you wore during the show?
You were wearing the same fucking
I just wore the same thing over and over again. Yeah. Well, there was that plaid shirt that I I did get, when we went to Italy, I kind of suddenly got a nice suit, inexplicably. Yeah. And then I got shot.
A shot.
So that was the end of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the kill suit I kind of liked, but it was a pain in the ass because it was so warm. You know, the plastic suit. And I don't know, he went away from that one. I thought it was going to be like a returning thing. He's so smart, he always uses it. Brian didn't like it, so all of a sudden I was just fingerprints everywhere. Yeah. But my favorite suit was the gray and red thingy.
I think I'm right in saying that Brian had that same suit made for himself.
Yes,
right?
in a giant size.
In a huge, yeah.
And a funny little story, if I may add. I took it home. I just stole it when we were done. And then Brian called me and said, I really want to give you a present. I want to give you that red suit, but I can't find it. All right, Brian, I already got it.
That is definitely one way to get caught.
I'm a lousy criminal. Yeah.
Was there a detail that you introduced to your characters that you're particularly proud of?
That's a very good question. I mean, I don't know that I feel responsible for all the details. I think it was there. It wasn't like I was like, what would be great, Brian, would be if like he has trouble making eye contact. But that was all, that was baked in. It was there from the go. No, I credit Brian basically.
Oh, low-hanging fruit there as well.
Says the I love Chicago guy.
That was one little thing I ended up being proud of, but it didn't make sense in the beginning at all. I just wanted to be a little interesting at the dinner table, when you sniff the wine. We've seen that a billion times, people sniffing the wine. And for some odd reason, I did this, and well, now I can explain why, but I did this. And it was just to be interesting, to be honest. But then I realized, this is clever. His sense of smell is so refined. It's too much right here. It has to be out there. And so it turned out to be smart. It started out just me trying to be interesting, to be honest.
You
So,
can
you
take
know, in
credit.
restaurants when there's somebody pours you a wine and then you're going to leave you to sniff it and you don't really know what to do. I have a friend who used to take the wine, look at it, sniff it, and then listen to it. just to kind of observe the waiter's bemusement and confusion. Does this guy know a lot more about wine than I do?
Now you can go home and do the same thing to look fancy in restaurants. What dish is permanently associated with Hannibal for you when you see it on a menu?
Yes. Yeah.
Be more specific. A dish. Well, I think the ortolan, for some reason, because it's so decadent. I mean, the way that you actually prepare these birds, it's a crazy story. I'm not going to bore you with it, but it's a very brutal and not a super heartwarming story how you treat these birds. But those birds is essentially the show in many ways.
Yeah, and I think is it about the only time that Hannibal serves a meal that isn't people or might not be people? Usually there's a...
Sasu.
What?
Here you go.
The lighting in the scenes of the show are so moody and kind of dark. Was it filmed like that, or was that added later?
No, it was filmed like that. We could barely see each other. That was Jim Hawkinson, the DP, who's pretty brilliant and also a complete oddball. I say that with all the love for him. But yeah, no, he would spend a lot. I mean, on TV shows, they move fairly fast, right? You don't get to spend all day shooting a scene, but I think more than any other TV show I've ever worked on, he took so much time to take lights away, right? And just to more and more specific. It was brilliant.
This is a fun Will question. Why did Will only sometimes wear his glasses?
Why did he only sometimes wear his glasses? I don't think he has bad eyesight. I think he just wears them as a shield, right? So, yeah.
What was your biggest takeaway from working on the show?
For Mads, it was the suit. No, I don't know. The biggest... This was probably, in this kind of long form, again, like showing up playing the same character for 3 years. I hadn't done that before, and I had certainly not done it in a way that it would keep growing and building. People talk about, it's so wonderful collaborating. It really was a collaboration, particularly between the three of us, Maz, myself, and Brian. So what I took away was just that it's incredible to work like that, and maybe rare.
Yeah, it's agree. And then I think we also we had a rare opportunity in the sense that we had the character of Abigail. So in general, we always just look at each other and we just grow a little older. But she was growing up while we were shooting it. It was wonderful to see how that changed her performance, and Brian also changed her character because of that.
For both of you, if you had to karaoke for your life, what song would you sing?
Does that mean for the rest of your life or to avoid being killed?
No, I think to avoid being killed.
I think in that second, I'm probably dead.
You sing in Ella Enchanted.
It's true. And nobody killed me. Have you sung? Have you sung?
Have I sung
I
ever?
sung on film.
I actually, that's a secret for now.
Okay.
Something is waiting for all of us out there. Was that? No, no, it's not Dust Bunny. No, but I'm not I don't think I would put that on my CV as a big thing. Song, I mean, you're just talking about. Are you asking us a favorite song that we want to
Sure.
be played constantly?
Or no, to karaoke to sing.
That's beautiful. Karaoke is a different thing. You have to sing Meatloaf. And
Yeah, or like.
it's like, so I'll do Bat Out of Hell on that one.
And one last question to wrap up. If you had to choose any scene to convince someone to watch Hannibal the show, which scene would you choose?
I would pick 3 scenes, which are the 3 scenes in this. I keep coming back to the second episode. I guess I loved that mushroom stuff. But the 3 scenes that we have together in the second episode, which begin with me up on the balcony, end with me, and conclude with the 2 of us for the first time sitting down opposite each other, that's kind of the heart of the show. So.
I would just show them the last episode in season 2. And then obviously,
And then wipe their minds.
yeah, and then I have to kill them afterwards. Because, but no, I think it's a surprisingly powerful episode. Yeah.
Wonderful answers both. I had such a lovely time. I assume you all did too. So please, big round of applause to Hugh Dancy and Mads Mikkelsen for joining us today.
Thank you,
Thanks,
you guys.
guys. Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for coming.